Hi, my name is Adam Spurk. I'm the resident woodwind instructor here in the Green Valley School District, and today I'm going to be showing you one of the hardest things about starting the clarinet, and that's simply putting together the mouthpiece. So the first thing we're going to look at is your reed case, which should look like this. When you open up a box of reeds, your reeds will come in cases that look like this. These kind of cases are great for shipping the reeds, but they're not great for storing them because they don't keep the reed flat after the reed has become wet. So we're going to use one of these. The way you get a reed out, hold the case, pull the reed out very gently like this. When we have our reeds, these are very fragile, especially up here where the tip of the reed is. So the only way we'll ever handle a reed is using the sides of the reed or by touching the base down here where it looks kind of barky. The first thing we need to do with it is we need to get this reed wet so that it will seal to the mouthpiece and so that the clarinet can make a sound. So the way I'm going to do this, there's two sides to the reed. This side's flat, this side's kind of rounded. I'm going to touch the flat side to my tongue with the tip of the reed pointing towards the back of my mouth, just like this. I'm going to take my reed out right now so I can keep talking and you can understand me, but your student should have their reed in their mouth for this entire process. So the first part we're going to look at is the mouthpiece. The mouthpiece actually has three parts to it. The first one is this right here. This is the mouthpiece cap. What it does is it protects the tip of the mouthpiece when it's sitting in the case. The second part is this sort of cloth part that has a screw attached to it. This is the ligature. There's another variation on a ligature, and I'll show you what that looks like a little later in this video. And then the last part is this, which is the mouthpiece itself. The other part we're going to look at is this right here. This is the barrel. You can see it's kind of shaped like a barrel. The next thing we're going to look at is cork grease. Comes in a tube like this and looks kind of like chapstick, but we shouldn't use it as chapstick. What we're going to do with this is we're going to grease the cork of our clarinet, which helps the clarinet stay together and it makes it easier to put the parts of the clarinet together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cap off, just like I would on chapstick. It's got a dial on the bottom, just like chapstick does, to show more or less cork grease. I'm going to hold this in my right hand with my first finger available. With my left hand, I'm going to pick up my mouthpiece. You can see the cork right here. I'm going to take a little bit of cork grease on my pointer finger. I'm just going to put it on the cork. My goal is to get an even coating of cork grease all around the cork. What I don't want is I don't want to see globs of cork grease on the cork because it makes it harder for the clarinet to be put together. So that's why we never apply like this, like you might for chapstick. We'll always just get a little on our finger, apply it to the cork, make sure it's even, kind of rub it into the cork. Once we can feel just a little bit of cork grease all around the cork, we're going to set our mouthpiece back down, put the cap on our cork grease, and put the cork grease back on our case. So at this point, the reed is wet up until the part where it was in our mouth. But we want the whole reed to be wet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the reed gently out of our mouth. Again, never touching the tip, only touching the sides and the bottom. And we're going to flip it around. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to rotate it around. Flat side will still touch my tongue, but the back of the reed will go in. The reed will stay in there until we attach it to our mouthpiece. Again, I'm going to take it out so you can understand me talking. The next we're going to look at is our barrel has two sides to it. One side is going to be a little bit bigger. The other side's a little bit smaller. The smaller side we're going to call up. That's the side that's going to go up when we hold our clarinet. And if yours has a logo on it like mine does, you're going to see that logo when you're holding it up. So this would be upside down. The bigger side's on top. The logo's upside down. This is right side up. Now I'm going to put my mouthpiece and barrel together. So in my left hand, I'm going to hold my mouthpiece. I'm going to take the cap off. I'm going to pick up my barrel, holding the smaller side up. Again, on mine I have a logo so you can see it. I've already greased my cork. I'm going to line up the smaller side of the barrel with the cork. I'm going to grab both parts firmly but gently. I'm just going to rotate and push together until the two parts touch, just like that. So when we're looking at ligature types, most of you are going to have a ligature like mine that's kind of this cloth material and there's one screw on it. When I'm looking at the front of the mouthpiece where there's this rectangle hole on these kind of ligatures, the screw is going to be away from me and the screw will be on the right side. On the other kind of ligature that you're going to see, which is all metal and has two screws, the two screws are going to be on the right side again, but this time they're going to be towards you when you're looking at this open rectangular cutout. So now we're actually going to put the reed onto the mouthpiece. The first thing I need to do is I need to loosen the screw on my ligature, which goes just like anything else, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. I'm going to loosen it just enough so that the ligature is able to be moved around. You can undo this screw so much that the screw actually fall off. We don't want that. So just enough that the ligature will move around. Using my left hand and a couple of fingers of my left hand, I'm going to take the ligature and push it up so that there's some space in between the mouthpiece and the ligature. That's where the reed is going to go in. The reed is not going to go inside of this square cut. It'll go right in between the mouthpiece and the ligature. At this point, with my mouthpiece in my left hand, my ligature up, I'm finally going to take my reed out of my mouth. Again, I'm going to be careful not to touch the tip. I'm only going to touch the sides and the bottom of the reed. I'm going to take this flat side of the reed. I'm going to position it so that it's going to touch the mouthpiece. The tip is pointing up towards the tip of the mouthpiece, not that way. I'm going to slide the reed down in between the mouthpiece and the ligature. Again, never touching the tip of the reed, only the sides and the bottom. And here's what I'm looking for to line it up. I want the tip of the reed, if you look at the side there, I want the tip of the reed and the tip of the mouthpiece to be in line. So here, the reed is too tall. Here, the reed is too low. I want to be right in line. As you can see how I'm doing this, I'm also gripping the sides of the reed right here. I want those to be in line with the sides of the mouthpiece. So that's shooting off to one side, that's going off to one side, that's right in line. So I want my reed to be in line top to bottom and left to right. Once I'm sure that's the case, I'm going to hold the bottom of the reed so it doesn't move with my left thumb. I'm going to pull my ligature down until just I can see this horizontal cut along the reed. That's called the file of the reed. I'm going to pull the ligature just below that. As you can see, when I pulled my ligature down just now, it moved my reed a little bit. So I'm going to do one more check to make sure my reed is perfectly in line left to right and top to bottom. Once I'm happy with where my reed is positioned, I'm going to make sure my ligature is perfectly on there, straight. And then I'm going to tighten the ligature screw just until it stops moving. I like to think of this as finger tight. I'm not having to crank it down. It just stops moving with a little bit of pressure. Once I've done that, my mouthpiece is completely assembled and I can start playing. Thank you.